be presenting the performance evaluation of ground vibration models in Ghana on behalf of Mr. Bright Affum and Professor Newton Amegbe. For the purpose of this presentation, we shall look at an introduction to what ground vibration modeling is. We'll look at some of the available models, and we'll look at ways we gathered information to help in predicting ground vibrations in Ghana. We'll compare the models, I'll conclude, and then give some recommendations. Generally, mining is guided by some principles, and I believe this is not only limited to Ghana. If you go to Sigiri, Australia, or any other country, they have their own laws and then regulations. Particularly for Ghana, we have the Minerals and Mining Regulation, which governs our mining operations. And for us to extract our mineral of interest in Ghana, when you talk of minerals, basically we think of gold, but I believe we have a lot more than that. But for us to extract that, we need to drill the formation, put in some explosives, and then detonate it in order to break the rock into desired sizes. We do this because we want to excavate the material easily. We want to make sure that we can load it easily, and then also minimize the cost of crushing or the treatment processes. One thing we know for sure is that when we detonate the explosives, about 20 to 30% of the energy is actually used to break the rocks. The rest go into undesirable effects. And these undesirable effects are, we can talk of the dust that is generated. We can also talk of the noxious gases. But my interest will be on ground vibrations. So we also have fly rock, we also have air overpressure, or what we usually call air blast. I remember in an interview, a student was asked what a fly rock is, and the student gave a very simple definition, that these are rocks that are flying. But I believe as mining professionals, fly rock doesn't necessarily mean rocks that are flying, but it's simply rocks that are ejected beyond the blasting zone. I will spend more time on ground vibration since that is of interest to us. For the mining companies to usually obtain permits for their operations, they need to justify that whatever they are going to do on the soil is going to be safe to people who are actually living around. And if you can't do that, then you wouldn't be given the permits to operate. So these laws are, the laws of Ghana are carved such that it should protect the people who are living around the mining community, and also protect the properties of the people. And to do this, you need to predict the impact of all your operations. I'll be talking about ground vibration, and somebody might ask me that what is this at all? Ground vibration is basically a seismic movement in the ground that is caused by induced blasting. We can also feel some ground vibrations when we have a compactor doing its work, just like Madam or Doctor was explaining earlier. If you are piling materials to, there are some form of ground vibrations was generated, and if there is traffic, you also feel some form of ground vibrations. But my interest will be on blast-induced ground vibrations. There are actually several models that are used to predict the level of ground vibrations, and these models are generated, or different countries have different models to predict ground vibration levels. Unfortunately for us, we don't have one. So what we do is that we usually adopt models from different countries. And in Ghana, if you happen to go through some of the reports at the Inspectorate Division, you would realize that it is the USBM, United States Bureau of Mines model, which is what's leading. Following that is the Amrise-Hindron. We also have models from India, which is even called the Indian Standard Model. I think UMaT is preparing to also come out with one model. I don't know the name they'll give to it, but I'm praying that it will be the UMaT model. For our study, we actually considered 18 models. And these models were picked from literature, and then we added those we have from the Minerals Commission. When you talk of modeling, the first man to start that was Morris, and he did that somewhere in 1950. And he came up with a very simple model. And in his model, he said that ground vibration depends on the charge weight or the cooperating charge. Some people may term it as the maximum instantaneous charge. When I say maximum instantaneous charge, I simply mean the quantity of explosive that detonates per delay. He also said that ground vibration also depends on the distance from which you are monitoring. So if there is a detonation here and somebody is sitting about 100 meters away from where the blast point is, the ground vibration level will be higher than somebody who is sitting 200 meters or 500 meters away from the blast point. And this was the expression he actually provided. And in his expression, we usually measure ground vibrations in PPVs, that is peak particle velocity. But he did that using what? Displacement, which he denoted as A. This particular expression is what we call the scaled distance. So if you are doing modeling of ground vibration levels, usually you hear of scaled distances, and this was the expression. In between 1950 and now, we have several models coming up, and the latest one is what was developed by UMaT in 2016. And this is the expression of his model. I wouldn't spend so much time explaining these things, but the basic thing that is within these two models are the charge weight and then the distances. You can see the distance here, you can also see the charge weight. I didn't talk about this K. The K simply stands for the rock properties. If you are in Accra, the rock properties here are different from if you go to Tirano or if you go to Asanko or even Perseus or Adamos mine. And this K actually denotes the properties of the rock. In UMaT's model, he also came up with this. We have the rock properties here, and these are all rock properties. You see K and then beta, they all represent rock properties. Okay. These are the 18 models that were actually considered for the study. We first started with that of Morris 1950, the USBM, which is popularly used in Ghana. We looked at Langiforce and then the rest. For us to actually come out with a predictive model or assess the models that are available, we had to go to the field and then pick data from there. And with that, we had to visit 6 large-scale mines in Ghana, including Goldfields, Perseus, Adamos, GMC, and some others. And in all, we considered 11 data sets. And when I talk about 11 data sets, you realize that we actually went to 6 mines and we had 11 data sets. If you go to a mine like Goldfields, Tapao, you realize that they have several pits. So if we pick data from Atwambo pit, they have one pit named Atwambo. So if you pick data from Atwambo pit, we name it as data set 1. If we pick the other from Mantrim pit, we name it as data set 2. To help us generate the constants that are the scale distances and those pertaining to the geology or the formation, we use Sigma plot as a solver. And this is a summary of the data that was collected from the various mines. All that we were interested in were the cooperating charge or the maximum instantaneous charge. We're also interested in the ground vibrations, and we're also interested in the distances from the blast point to the monitoring point. And you realize that with data set 1, we had 153 observations, and the cooperating charge was within 15 to 89, with ground vibration levels being ranging between 0.13 to 3.68, and then the distance is 250 meters to 907 meters. We did that for the rest of the pits, and we had to plot that and use some statistical tools to assess the information that we had. And these are some of the few ones we used. We used the coefficient of correlation. We looked at the coefficient of determination, adjusted RSQR as a coefficient of variation, and then we also looked at some estimation errors. And what we had was that if you look here on this particular column, the coefficient of correlation, the higher the coefficient of correlation, the better the prediction. So that was done for all these, and we had to rank them. So if we pick data from Mantrim or Atuabo, we conduct this exercise on it, and then we come out with the best 5. So for here, you realize we will select the first 5, and then we leave the rest. So we did that for the 11 data sets. And after doing that, we realized that this particular model, Ashnidad et al. 2013, this model appeared 11 times. And the Gauche-De model, which was formulated in 1983, also appeared 8 times. This one also appeared 8 times, this around 7 times, and this around 6 times. And we did for the rest. And doing that, we realized that the Ashnidad et al. 2013 appeared in almost all the data sets that we had. And twice it became first on the first 5, and then 5 times in the second. So with that, we're able to conclude that this model is the best predictor on the Ghanaian soil. From there, we also rank these to also establish the Gauche-De, Gauche and the UMaT following the Ashnidad model. So in conclusion, what we are saying is that blast impact is something that's very important to every mining operation. And as our regulators are becoming more stringent, we also need to do good prediction. And for you to actually predict, there is a need that you look at the model that you are actually using to predict. And today we are recommending the Ashnidad 2013 model for ground vibration prediction in Ghana. And this is how that particular Ashnidad model looks like. You realize that he still has the basic parameters that we need, the distance and then the charge weight. And he has some rock properties. He considered even the rock mass rating in his model. So what we are saying is that these are the models that are actually good for the mining industry aside that of the Ashnidad model. And what we should do as Ghanaians is that we should be able to come out with a model for ourselves other than depending on other countries for ground vibration prediction models. And I tell you that this exercise is, by the end of the year, I think the ground vibration model for Ghana will actually be out. And one thing we shouldn't forget is that if you happen to visit the mines, the way sometimes they record these ground vibration values are not actually accurate. So we are entreating the managers or the miners around that they should inform their people to actually give much attention to the records of these data, since we need it for academic purposes and also to help establish models for our country. The authors of this exercise would like to thank the management of the various mines which assisted in the research, and the Minerals Commission also helped so much, especially the Inspectorate Division, in gaining information for this particular exercise. Some of the management of the mines actually did so much well, and we can talk of that of Perseus Mine and then Kengo's Chirano Mine. And then we also want to thank the management of University of Mines and Technology for actually providing funds for this research. Thank you so much.